it was on unlisted, so only people who had a link could see it. Hello, happy New Year's Eve. I am so happy to be here with you. We're going to be talking about my favorite books and podcasts and other things from 2020, because even though the year was garbage fire, there were still some bright spots in the forms of how we entertained ourselves. So thank you for being here. If you're watching the replay, hello, it is good to see you too. Go ahead and leave me a comment and tell me what you were looking forward to in 2021. And don't forget to hit that like button. If you are new around here, I would love for you to subscribe and join our community. Hi, I love it. I love chatting with y'all live. Okay, so let's just jump into some of my favorite books for the year. And if you have any book recommendations, I would love to know what they are. So leave me a comment and tell me. So I read a lot, and I read from a lot of different genres. So there's going to be some nonfiction, some self-help, some fiction, some historical books. I like to read, and I like to read things from people who maybe don't necessarily have the same viewpoint and opinion, because I think that that's important too. So the first book that I read this year is a fiction book, and I absolutely loved it. And I think one of you recommended it to me, and that is The Alice Network. Atomic Habits. Yes, several people recommended that to me during my last video, or maybe it was one of the videos this week when I talked about habits to start this year. That was one that came up a lot in the comments. So I'm going to add that to my list. So I'm going to write it down right now. Also, if you hear someone in the background, my husband is sitting on the other side of the table working from home. Okay, so yes, my first book that I loved this year was The Alice Network. It is fiction, historical fiction, and it is about this female spy network in World War I, World War II, and then afterwards. And I actually listened to this one on Audible, which I recommend listening to this one because the narrator did such a wonderful job. She did an American accent, a British accent, a French accent, and she was great. Yes, someone just said Love Without Borders. Oh, by Angela Braniff. She's a YouTuber. I listened to that one this year too, and it was fantastic. So that's Angela's memoir about adoption and all of that. So I'm sorry you just tilted. Don't, it's fine, don't. My husband's trying to help me with my little stand. I have a stand that hooks to my laptop and has a light on it, and it got a little wobbly. I read about female spies during World War II, but it wasn't the one you mentioned. Well, what was the book? I would love to know what it was. So my next book is nonfiction, and it's Brene Brown, Aunt Brene. We all love her, right? And it was Rising Strong, which is, that book is a couple years old, but I just loved it because I love anything that's, hi Sandra, that's based in science or on data. And I love how she takes these concepts, and as a researcher, she bases them on, scientific evidence and long-term research and these data-based peer-reviewed studies, but she also ties in this emotional aspect to our behaviors, because people like to think that we're either emotional or analytical, and sometimes decisions can be both. So I highly recommend that, Rising Strong by Brene Brown. Another nonfiction sort of self-help genre is The Lazy Genius Way by Kendra Adachi. And if you have watched my channel for any length of time, you've heard me talk about Kendra's podcast, The Lazy Genius, and the tagline is, be a genius about the things that matter and lazy about the things that don't. And she teaches all sorts of processes and life hacks, if you will, for maximizing our time while still getting rest. And so The Lazy Genius Way is just that. It's so many different practical, easy to implement processes that you can use for just everyday problems in your house. You're shaking the table. And I love memoirs, historical biographies, autobiographies, anything history related. And so I do read a lot of political biographies. And one that I really, really enjoyed was Becoming by Michelle Obama. It's just her memoir. She reads it, and it's such a well-paced, well-written story. So if that's something you're interested in, I loved it. Now, I have two more fiction books, but I want to come with a little disclaimer that both of these have some adult content in them. One of them, while I enjoyed the story and it was one of my favorite books of the year, it was a little gratuitous. Becoming is one of my top 5 books of 2020. Yeah, it was really good. I really enjoyed it. The Name They Gave Us by Emery Lord. Okay, I'm gonna write that down. I feel like I've heard of that one. Okay. Oh, do you like my notes on the back of a worksheet with pencil, a Valentine's pencil? So the first book, and like I said, there's some adult content. It had a lot of language and frankly some just gratuitous sex scenes. I don't know why they needed to be there, but it didn't detract from the book. And I feel like if you're reading, you can kind of see that coming and skip ahead a few pages. But it was Leave the World Behind. So I had heard about this book. I was listening to NPR. Someone was reviewing the book before it came out. And I immediately went to Audible and pre-ordered it because it sounded so good. And so this is one of those books where you really need to be aware of your threshold for fear, maybe, because it can be a little bit unsettling. And I don't want to give away the entire plot, but it's about this couple that rents an Airbnb in the Hamptons, and then one night this couple shows up on their front porch claiming to be the owners and saying there's a blackout. And so there's some tension there, and in the fringe, behind the scenes, what's going on in the world is basically an apocalypse, and then how these two families are dealing with it in this mansion. And there, you know, there's a lot of social tension and racial tension, and then just strangers being together in the unknown. But it's kind of a little unsettling to read it now in the current goings on with COVID and all of that. So just know that if you're, I wouldn't say it's not a horror book, but if you're easily unsettled or frightened, skip it, but it was excellent. And then my last recommendation is The Invisible Life of Addie Larue by V.C. Schwab. Yes, the audiobook of Becoming is read by Michelle Obama, and she does such a good job. But the last one is The Invisible Life of Addie Larue by V.C. Schwab. So good, came highly recommended. It again has some adult content in it. It's kind of hard to explain. So this French young woman in the 1400s bargains to sell her soul for freedom, and then she basically becomes immortal, but no one remembers her. So she just walks in and out of people's lives. And when I say no one remembers her, I mean she can walk into a room, have a conversation, they walk out, come back in and don't remember her. But she can influence like art and music and ideas. And so she's existed this way for 400 years, and then one day someone in a bookstore recognizes her. It is so good. The narrator does a great job. She does an American accent and a French accent. There's a little bit of French spoken in the narration. Yes, a lot of these are audiobooks because that's how I'm able to read so much. So I usually have like a physical book going and then an audiobook going, and that's my cheat. So those are the books I recommend. I have a quick little tip for you if you're trying to read more this year, and there's nothing that says you have to finish a book in a week or in a month, or like read it at your own pace. This isn't a competition. But if you're trying to squeeze more in, just take a book, look at the number of pages, divide it by 7, and read that many pages in a day. That's my little tip for you. So be sure to leave me a comment with your favorite books. I'm gonna take a little break to sip my coffee. That's what I called this live when I shared it on Instagram this week, that it would be coffee with friends. Because last week when I did a live, one of you left me the best comment. I absolutely loved it. You said, it's like coming and having coffee with a friend. And I told Jason, that is what I have always wanted my channel to be. Like, you go over to your neighbor's house and you chat and drink coffee, and she gives you non-judgmental advice and tells you inappropriate things about her underwear drawer. Okay. So next we're going to move on to podcasts. If you're a podcast lover, leave me some recommendations because I love them, and I kind of am all over the place with them. I listen to business ones and budgeting ones and true crime because, I mean, why not? And if you are a fan of The Office and you have not listened to the Office Ladies podcast, go do it. But if you have not heard this week's, it's just a New Year's message from the cast. It is an instant serotonin boost. Okay, so Dania, I hope I'm saying your name right. She said, my final tally for 2020 is 66 books, a new record for me, 1 physical and 1 audiobook. That's the best way to do it. And I do have an Audible subscription and I love it. My husband uses it too because he listens to books when he travels. So that subscription serves as well, but there are lots of places to get free audiobooks. Overdrive has them, Libby has them. I think that's the same thing. It's just under a different name. And that should be free through your library. Oh, your comments went away. Come back. Oh, I can't see them. Okay, there they are. I listen to Dave Ramsey, Chris Hogan, and me. My podcast will come back eventually. It's just hard right now to find time to record when no one is screaming in the background. But if you like listening to me, I will be on the Frugal Friends podcast on January 15th, which, by the way, that's one of my favorite podcasts from this year. I just started listening to it this year. So it's so funny. It's Jen and Jill. They're friends. They're frugal. They talk all things money. They interview people. They are hilarious and very irreverent. Jen is a writer and Jill is a social worker with a counseling background, and so she brings a lot of that emotional aspect of why we spend into the podcast, and it's fantastic. So I'm going to be on there, like I said, January 15th, so mark your calendars. Okay, so my podcast recs are all over the place. So we're going to start with a true crime podcast called Dr. Death, and it's season 2 of Dr. Death. So season 1 came out a couple years ago, and it was about a neurosurgeon who, for some reason, started botching surgeries. Oh my goodness, I love Jen and Jill. Wow, I can't wait. Thank you, Allison. It was really fun to be on there. Dr. Death does sound morbid. It kind of is. But like I said, he was a neurosurgeon, and for some reason, he just started botching surgeries. So and now he's in prison. Spoiler alert. Season 2 is about an oncologist who was diagnosing patients and treating them with cancer when they did not have cancer. And so that's, sad, but it's an excellent podcast. So that's season 2. Dear Hank and John and Bits of Brie. Oh, I didn't realize Hank and John had a podcast. I'm like an OG Vlogbrothers follower, but Bits of Brie. I really like her too. She's great. I listened to that one. My next podcast that I love this year was The Dream. So this one comes with a language alert. Season 1 was about pyramid schemes, and season 2 was about health and wellness and how people are sold health and wellness under the guise of it's going to make you feel better and look better, but really it's fear tactics being used to sell you things that you don't necessarily need, that aren't evidence-based. It's very eye-opening, but again, language warning. What about you, Jason? What are some podcasts you like? What do you listen to?
I haven't listened to any this year because I've been listening to my books.
I totally listened to the MLM one based on your recommendations, and whoa. Yeah, It's eye-opening. You're going to see a lot of people that you know when you listen to The Dream season 1. The alarm bells will start ringing. I was picking on Jason earlier this week or last week that this year when I was sitting around in a pair of pajama pants that I made my mother-in-law agree with me were acceptable out of the house wear. Like, I put them on and I said, I can wear these out in public. And she was like, sure. Jason was out here picking up a new hobby, learning how to hand carve things. He learned how to smoke a brisket, and he finished an entire book series. I'm on the couch in my pajamas / out in public pants. What you gonna do? But he listened to the Witcher series on Audible, and you really enjoyed that. He really liked the narration. I don't know what it's about. Supernatural.
Yeah.
So if that's your thing, nerds, you'll enjoy it. And that's it. That's all I got as far as recommendations go for books and podcasts. What do y'all have? And how are you ringing in your new year? We are staying at home. I mean, duh, as always. But Jason's going to make, what are you making?
Steaks.
He's going to make some steak. Mine! Thank you. I haven't put out a new episode. I'm a very disorganized, unprofessional podcaster who records on her phone in my van. Not while driving. But I don't know. I feel I need to go through some videos and turn some ideas into podcasts. I just feel like I've been on the internet making things for so long that I have run out of ideas. But I also have to remember that new people are coming in and maybe they haven't heard those ideas before. So who knows? We're staying home, but we're considering getting a new board game and playing it. That's fun. You're recovering from COVID and so is your toddler. Oh, Allison, I'm so sorry. Have you listened to The Purpose Show? No, I haven't, Jessica. What is it about? I'm writing it down. You're staying home, ordering pizza and watching Halloween. That's funny. Jackbox games over Zoom with parents and in-laws going to bed at 9. That's my dream, going to bed at 9. Minimalism and motherhood. I'm gonna have to check that out. That is what The Purpose Show is about. Oh, and then Felicia Masonheimer. She wrote a book called Stop Calling Me Beautiful, which is about women's Bible studies, basically. It's a very good book. But she also has a podcast that's based on its theology for women. I mean, everyone can benefit from the same teachings, but it's broken down by women, and I enjoyed that one. Okay, so that's it. Oh, I'd rather be reading. Yes, from Modern Mrs. Darcy. That is a great podcast if you love books. Did you read? Wait, what? I'm sorry. I'd be helping you fold your laundry. Jason folded it yesterday. Did you read Courage to Give? I have not read that yet. It's on my list. My top 5 books of 2020, Becoming, The House in the Cerulean Sea. That's on my list. The Night Circus, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn, Hugo, and The Lovely War. I have heard excellent things about each one of those books you just mentioned. Planet Money, The Indicator with Planet Money is an excellent podcast too. I feel like we're actually Skyping. I keep wanting to apologize when my toddler is making noise. You're fine, we can't hear him. But if we could, we would probably all be talking to him. You second The 7 Husbands of Evelyn, Hugo. Okay. It's funny because I actually saw that last night when scrolling through Libro, Libro is like Audible, but they funnel their books through independent booksellers. So that was one of them. Oh, so many of you are recommending that. I'm going to move it to the top of the list because I have a bunch of books I need to read. But I feel like reading and buying books are 2 separate hobbies. Correct. 2 separate hobbies. Okay, well, thank you guys for being here and for hanging out. I really enjoy doing these lives. So if you have topics that you want me to cover in a live, let me know. You get bored if not visually. She says, am I the only one who can't do audiobooks or podcasts? I get bored if not visually stimulated. That's a thing. I mean, I get easily, I'm a fast reader, but sometimes I get bored reading. And then sometimes I get bored listening because I feel like I can read faster than I can listen. So everyone has their own thing. The audiobook is best for Evelyn Hugo. Okay. Love from Croatia. Oh, Love from Croatia. You're saying that. I thought it was a book title. Hi. You do Audible as you craft. That's a great idea too. It allows me to multitask. Let me know if you have suggestions for upcoming lives. So I want to do more, but the live videos will be different from my sit down videos because I actually do research for sit down videos. And so I don't feel like I can get into those financial topics unless I know what I'm talking about. And I very rarely know what I'm talking about. But if you have ideas for just chit chats or questions, then I would love to hear them because I want this to be, where we have coffee with friends. How about a cook with me? I'd have to figure out the logistics of that. But yeah, we can make that work. Right, Jason? You have video suggestions. Well, I want to hear them. Pop them in the comments, or you can always shoot me an email, lydia@lydiasenn.com, talking about tax season. Okay, well, that's coming, and this year taxes will be interesting. So I may have to file my taxes and talk to my lady before I make a video about it, but I'm kind of nervous about taxes this year, aren't you, Jason? I don't want it to end either, Allison, but it must. Okay, I hope you all have a happy and blessed new year. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you. Oh, can anyone from New Zealand or that side of the world tell us how 2021 is looking so far? Liza, is it Liza or Lisa? I made a couple videos about making goals. I made one that came out yesterday about what my goals were and a few questions I asked myself. And then at the end, there's a little like, we can do this together. So go check that out. Okay, so I'm gonna go this time. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. You have a lot of ways that you can spend your time, and I appreciate that you want to spend it with me. And I love talking about books and podcasts and all those things. So thank you for humoring me, and I'll see you next year. I love that joke. All right, bye.